One of the big questions people have when they first start programming with object-oriented methodologies is, what is a class and what is an object? Well, a class, or sometimes called a class definition, tells us what an object will look like. It tells us what internal variables are being used, and the methods are going to be used to access and control those variables. It's like a blueprint. It doesn't actually store any information. It's not the actual item. We're going to build that later. When we create an object, we take that blueprint and we instantiate it. That is, we create one based upon the design of the class, and we start filling it with data. Objects are created from a class once the main program is actually running. Your program can keep creating objects from a class. So, for example, let's say you have a class called student, and then you have an object for each student in a given course. Now, each one of those objects is completely unique and independent from one another. Class variables are called attributes. They help describe the class by giving us ideas of how each individual object is going to be different. For example, a person class might have attributes of hair color, height, weight, date of birth, etc. However, each of these attributes will describe the person. And while some objects might have the same values for a given attribute as another, the chances of all of those attributes being the same are very low for any well-defined class. These class variables might be simple data types like a string and number and booleans, or it could be more complex data like a list or a dictionary object. In fact, you could even have other user-defined classes within a user-defined class. Now, methods are functions built into a class. They're used to allow access to the variables stored within the object. This way, the program code outside of a class has access to them. Methods can provide protection of our data, making sure only those who have the rights to it can actually access the data. It also is going to make sure that the data that we send to it is correct. Think of it as built-in error checking. Two of the most common types of methods that we use are called getters and setters. Now, getters are methods used to get the value of a variable from our object. Typically, it's going to be named something like get and then the variable name. It will then return the value of that variable. A setter, on the other hand, is used to set the value of a variable in our object. Typically, it's going to be named set and then the variable name. Now, sometimes those methods will have some error detection in them, making sure, for example, a number is positive or some other values. Now, why is that important? Well, it goes to the three tenets of object-oriented programming. These main tenets is based upon grounding how our data is going to look and behave. The first of which is encapsulation, the idea that we protect and contain the data within our object. By limiting access to our data and our methods, we can protect our data from being changed from unnecessary or improper outside sources. Inheritance is the idea that you can have a class based upon another class. And when you inherit from a base class, you get a copy of all of its methods and attributes. This makes it very fast for developing sets of complex classes that have similarities between them. Polymorphism allows for the same name in a method to be defined multiple times, usually via function overloading. And those are the three main tenets that you're going to find and will be properly implemented in a good, well-defined class. And from that class, you'll create your objects, and if you do it right, it'll make it much, much easier to write your complex programs.